I don't know, I have a storyline that's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like I could just give you the story. I get like, okay, so the past doesn't really get to me that much, but I get really paranoid about the future and like certain things that will unfold. Like, for instance, there's a guy that I'm involved with, and then there's this girl that I know. They don't know each other, but I think, if I, you know what I mean? Like, if I bring them together, ugh, it's just like those are the worst feelings and the worst thoughts, and then the feelings associated with them. So it's just like, and I mean, it's like made up stuff.
Yeah.
Like, but it's paranoia, I guess.
But it's actually, that doesn't necessarily need to go. It might lighten, but it's the identification with it that's making it uncomfortable. Like the brain imagines, that's what it does. It's meant to be able to think about potential dangers in the future and stop going towards those dangers. But the reason that it becomes suffering is because of the identification that goes with it and this tight contraction. And when you feel these feelings, it's like the sense of self sucks onto it, and then it's like the whole body is taken over with this paranoia. And the whole experience is taken over with paranoia. So it's not actually necessarily the thought patterns that need to change. Often most speakers say, oh, it's the thought patterns and you need to change your mind. But the brain is designed to do that. It's designed to focus on fears. And sometimes the brains go a bit crazy, identified or not, and they get stuck on certain thoughts. Like there's loads of neural pathways in the brain. And if you've had your parents, like maybe if your mother was really anxious and neurotic about the future, then it might have built a very strong neural pathway in that area of the brain. And that's not necessarily personal. That's the personal sense is just sucking onto that dynamic and making it worse than what it is. It kind of makes it like that's me and that's going to happen to me, and so it becomes this whole big thing. But if this was something that brain was taught at a young age, then it's highly unlikely that that's going to ever change. I know that sounds so. It could do it, and it will relax when it's not personal, but these neural pathways are very strong, and scientists now prove that it's very hard to change these neural pathways. The one thing that I read about recently was a drug that they have, which directly attacks these neural pathways. So you activate them by saying or speaking about the paranoia, and then you take the drug and it directly removes them in the brain. But most other forms of therapy, it's quite hard to remove these sorts of things. So the problem is the sense of self, and that will go by itself. What's going to happen in the character, though, is you're going to keep seeing this dynamic as the character, and you're going to want to keep trying to fix it, because you will see it as a pain for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just what's happening, and that will act its way out. And you'll keep wanting to get rid of it and wanting to stop it. But it's something, all bodies come with their particular programming. I've been a dog walker. I've shared this a few times. It most probably sounds quite shocking to people, but it's really not shocking. I've been a dog walker since I was about 8 years old, and there's a few times where I've had a few nasty incidents when I've been really far out in the middle of nowhere. I'm now 35, so I've been dog walking every day for most days for 25 years. Is that right? Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a lot of walking. So you can imagine that there's been some negative things that have happened, like getting lost, but also having some bad incidents with some other humans and other dogs and all these things. So now, that's okay. We can just wait for it to pass.
Okay.
It just happens with the ads. It happens.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. And so now the association in the brain is sometimes be wary of other humans when I'm in a very remote place. And that's so, if I see somebody far off in the distance, a guy particularly far off in the distance, then there's a likelihood that I will walk in a different direction. And so the brain's quickly projected that that's potential danger, and it's moved itself away from that situation. That's what these brains do. They record information, and then they repeat that information, and that's part of the programmings of these machines. We
Yeah.
think, though, and what we get stuck in is we think that enlightenment is not having those dynamics. And so we get stuck in this dynamic of trying to fix something that can't really be fixed. And we look at enlightenment as a subject object thing. It's when I stop being paranoid about. It's when these thoughts stop. It's when these behaviors stop. And it's not got anything to do with the person. Liberation is a waking up of what you truly are. And right now, it's never been the character listening to Lisa. The character's been a filter, and it's always been life listening to life, aliveness listening to aliveness through apparent forms.
Yeah. Okay. There's nothing to really, I guess there's nothing like you say sometimes to do, but I just
Doing will happen. So if it becomes too painful, that body might go and try and find some alternative therapy or some form of therapy to relieve it. So doing always happens. The body always will move towards pleasure and try to avoid what it associates as pain. But enlightenment it's not something that you can get to. It is. You can run as far as you like. You can be in the deepest hell, and there's always aliveness. There is always God everywhere, in everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I think the more painful it gets, the more the self collapses. So
it could be that's the way it happens in some body mind mechanisms. Is the sense of identification becomes really tight, like really strong and obvious and apparent, and then it sort of burns itself out. But then in some other body mind mechanisms, it seems to go out without any fight. It's so unique to each.
What's funny is that like something bad happens, like this terrible imagination happens, and then it's like I hear the FedEx guy and I got a book in the mail, and I'm like I'm excited about my book, and so it totally like it just shifts like that. I mean, so it's just like come on, like it's not like that genuine if it just comes and goes. And I mean, but when you're in it, I just pity like that. I pity that myself so much.
Yeah.
And also like the same thing with guys too. It's like with people who have meaning to you. I mean, like a guy can be like really treat you like you mean the world to him, but I'm just kind of like, man, I know that you could just as easily replace me. You could take me or leave me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, going like with that, it's okay, but it's like really it's self-defeating in that sense.
Yeah.
Whatever. Thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Lovely to speak with you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.